Hello, traders. Welcome to this live webinar on Ultima EA. Thank you so much for joining. Appreciate your time for being here. Of course, this is the third webinar, in fact, on Ultima EA. Last week, we had some sound issues, so we had to stop sooner than we wanted to. I just want to check if you can hear and see me properly this time, and if everything is A-okay with the sound, at least, and also the screen. So if you can give a Y for yes, that would be perfect. Mislav Nikolic and I, Chris Vorsic, are happy to talk about the topic we wanted to discuss last week, which is the kind of expectations one can have from the EA. All right. And continue a little bit about that. And of course, after that, we're going to discuss all of your questions and discuss our answers. If there are anything you want to ask, feel free to use this chat box in the live webinar or the form link that I just sent here in the chat box as well. Feel free to use either of the two. All right, we got some green lights here. Great stuff. So Mislav is actually still on his last day traveling back, so he won't be joining us today, but he should be able to be with us next week. So looking forward to that. He is also looking forward to being here next week, and he sends his best wishes to everyone. This is the last day of June, so the last day of the month, and that's always, of course, an interesting spot. What will the last trades be, perhaps to close this this June month, and also the last day of the quarter from that point of view. All right, let's take a little bit a look now at something else. Here we go. Let's share this. And you should be seeing my FX book now. Good. Let's get rid of this big blue square. Now, last week I was talking about what to expect, and that or how to manage expectations, how to basically manage the trading part from a trading psychological aspect as well. Because obviously, when we look at the live trading results that we've managed to get in 12 to within the last 11 to 13 months, plus the backtesting results, of course, those look very good, let's face it, and that creates a certain expectation. The thing is that the best emphasis that a trader can do is always placing it on the long term, specifically with this system, I should say. So what we want to communicate is how we see the system, how we treat the system, how we review the trading psychology point of view. And that is up to you as a trader to decide whether that's something for you or not, whether you like that risk or not, whether you want to trade with risk capital or not, or do you prefer something else, right? There is this particular trading vehicle is not necessarily good for everyone. Not everyone will appreciate that kind of risk. Not everyone will appreciate this kind of equity curve. Not everyone will want to wait maybe months before they see the performance. Some would rather see it on a daily basis or weekly basis, right? And that's nothing wrong with that. Every trader has to find their own portfolio that matches their patience, their trading psychology, their investment goals, right? This is, in my view, an excellent system, but it doesn't mean that the performance it shows can necessarily match your trading psychology, okay? Or if it does, or if you're not sure about it, you can always, of course, choose a level of risk capital that you feel comfortable with, that you are not too concerned about. That's always easier than if one risks too much with too much capital, or more capital. Then, of course, traders get nervous quicker, right? So what I would always advise at the start is find a balance in if you like what you see, find a balance in what you're trading with. Always risk, of course, with risk capital. Obviously, that's number one. Never capital that you cannot afford to lose. Obviously, that is a golden rule in any case. So the emphasis of Ultima EA is, and that's what we're always trying to communicate in whatever vehicle, whether we write an article or a YouTube video or this webinar, we always emphasize the long term. This is not a system that's going to aim at certain daily targets, weekly targets, or even monthly targets. So we want to be very upfront of that we're not hiding that. We really want to clearly communicate that. That's why there's this specific dedicated webinar to explaining this topic, just to emphasize that again. And we might do that again a few months from now. I don't want to be too repetitive either, but this is an important factor. What we prefer is to look at the EA performance basically from a year perspective. That's very long for most traders. We understand that. That's why we're saying, okay, 6 to 12 months. Because the thing is, when we look at the past, we could start at, why don't we start with this? This is the 5% risk per setup for, I think, 2.5 years of trading, mid 2017 to end 2019, if I remember correctly. And we can look at the performance that it made, the $0 50-minute approach, 5% risk per setup. So this is the highest risk we would take on any system, basically, also Ultima EA. And we can look at the performance from a month-to-month perspective. And you can see there are periods where we had really, really great boosts. Here, 70, 157, 40, for a total of 257% in just 3 months. But then, so if you started beginning of February, you would be laughing every day, right? Enjoying it every day. But if you start at the beginning of May and you witness and experience minus 15 plus 12 and then minus 11 or minus 12, you might be scratching your head and thinking, hey, this is not the type of performance that I expected, specifically when you look at the previous 3 months. What happened? Is something wrong, right? A lot of traders will be wondering that and asking us that. And you can see that actually will be negative 15% after those 3 months. So a lot depends on when you start, what you experience in the first 3 months. I personally started in August, had a beautiful run up in August, as you can see, plus 121. Then added capital after this plus 170, but then didn't see much performance in October, November, December. And January was also small. So I had to wait 4 months, but then February came and there was a big boost of more than 200%. Now, this particular pattern, 3 months strong, 3 months weaker, is probably coincidence, to be honest, right? We had it twice in a row now, or 3 times in a row, but I don't think that is a particular pattern that will last. So don't take that as a standard necessarily. But I'm just trying to explain how there are these waves, these ups and downs, and that depending on when you start, you could be lucky or unlucky. And we had a lot of traders who stopped at the end of 2019 because they just didn't see the performance that they were probably waiting for. They got nervous, impatient, and unfortunately, they did miss the big run up in February 2020. So that is unfortunate for them, and it's a pity for them. So that's why we're communicating this clearly, so that you have the information to decide whether this is something for you or whether it's not for you. And good friends in either case, but at least you have that information to make that analysis and make that judgment, whether that's for you or not. The monthly performance, we were asked sometimes about what do we expect, what do we forecast for the monthly performance. That's impossible for us to forecast. But we can calculate based on live trading and back testing results what the average was. We cannot say what the average will be. Hopefully, the average will remain the same. Maybe it will become more, maybe it will become less. We don't know. But what we do know is that when we look at the live trading and backtesting results, and when we look at the rules and the strategy itself and how it's built and how it acts, how it is dynamic in the trade management, we do think that in the long run, we have an edge. We have an edge to be profitable. And there is a decent probability that we will make some money a 6 to 12 months time frame. Is that a guarantee? No, nothing is. And there is also a chance that we might lose, be in a big drawdown, or maybe even lose the capital. So that's why, specifically with 5% risk, of course, the drawdown could be sizable, 50%, 50 to 55% historically. Of course, you never know. That gives us some range, and there's a good chance that the drawdown will stay within that range. But of course, the drawdown can always be more. So that's why with such a high risk, of course, 5% per setup, that is something that you need to be aware of. Let's take a look at other months. 2018. Yeah, so sorry, just to finish the thought. In the long run, we see the edge in our favor. So when we look on a horizon of 6 to 12 months, the edge is, we think that there's an edge in our favor. But it doesn't have to play out even in that time frame. But we think that within years, our edge will be visible. Now, that's quite conservative, because if you look at the backtesting results, the edge is very visible much sooner. But it's kind of a defensive attitude, because, of course, past results don't mean necessarily that the future results will be the same. Although in live trading last year, we do see that the results have been approximately the same as backtesting. So that is a good confirmation. But the future is the future. We never know. That's kind of the view. So we think 6 to 12 months, the performance should be visible, but there's no guarantee, basically, to summarize it. And there could be moments where the performance is not the same, even from a 6 to 12 month performance. But we do believe that in the long run, we have an edge. There could be periods where we have big boosts and periods where we have some drawdown. And that's something we have to be ready for. All right, so here you can see 2017, all pluses, but there were a few months that were maybe a bit smaller, those gains. Here we also had a few months minus. So typically what we see is about 1 out of 4 months, it could be a minus, and the 3 out of 4 months, there's some plus. And of course, the size of the plus could vary. Some months could be way higher, some months could be average, some months could be decent sized profits. Let's take a look at my own account for 2020. Plus 16, plus 217, minus, or let's say 0, plus 8, plus 39, and June so far minus 3. All right. So, relatively, the last 4 months seems to be about, for my account at least, plus minus is about 44%, right? Pretty good result. But of course, small compared to the massive plus 217 in February, right? Overall, though, I'm more than happy for the total result of 2020, which all in all is about 275%. So very happy with that result, as you can see. Let me see if there are any questions in the meantime after this. After this discussion. Let's see, Christine. There has been a losing streak indeed. Recently, at the end of June, 10 seems quite a lot to me. This hasn't been updated for a while, though. I see somehow. I have to reconnect it. I don't know what happened. I wasn't aware of that. Somehow. I know why. Okay, I have to reconnect it. Now I know. The password was changed and I forgot about it, and I didn't connect it to my FX book again. Sorry about that. I wasn't aware of that. We'll do that. Make sure that that's connected again. This is old. Back to June 22. Let me see if Mislav has it connected. Okay. Yes, this is 2 hours ago, so let's use that. But we don't have history there, unfortunately. So I cannot see it. But 10 seems quite a lot. I thought it was a little bit less. Maybe I can check it in some other way. Hang on, folks. We'll open up MT4 live so we can check together. Okay. If not through my Fixbook, we'll just open we'll just open MT4. That's just as good. But anyhow, yes, there was in any case some type of losing streak. I thought one win in between those losses, but it can vary from trader to trader, from account to account, from broker to broker. Christine, which broker are you using, if I may ask? And are you a rental or are you a profit share member? Just to get a bit more information about that. And yeah, these streaks will happen. Let's take a look at the 5% risk thing here. Let's see. We don't have any max losing streak here, unfortunately. I don't see it, at least. But yeah, these streaks will happen. That's part of the system. So when you look at this equity curve, you see this massive number, but what you don't see is all these days and weeks and months where price maybe went, or not price, but the account went sideways, the account had a drawdown, So yeah, it's sometimes it's very challenging when you start out and you have faced a losing streak like this to maintain the patience. And it's much easier, of course, to start with some winning streak so that you have a buffer, not only with your account but also with your patience. So that is more difficult. But just keep in mind that, let's say if you started at this peak right here, that you would have a drawdown, then a substantial sideways move, for that you would see this push up, just to give you an idea. All right, so will the future be the same? We don't know, but just to give you an idea about that aspect. Okay. Christine is asking, I want to ask you why there are two orders entered, almost the same entry point and almost the same time. That is correct. There are scale-ins because each time price, that's according to the rules, each time price is in a trend, makes a pullback and shows signs of continuation, that is a new next setup. And so that is valid, that is correct. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, we usually see these groups of trades typically actually work out in our favor rather than not. Now, there's not always like that, but mostly, I don't know the percentage, but often they do work in our favor. But it's not 100% thing. Of course, it's times where we have groups of trades also going against us and closing for losses. But often we see those groups of trades do pretty well. Yeah, so it's 5% risk per setup with the profit share model. Now, of course, if you're renting the EA, you can decide the risk yourself and you can reduce that. So I would say that on a scale from 1 to 10, and 10 being the most risky, I would probably say Ultima EA is 50-minute chart, you're $1. I don't know. This is, of course, subjective, and some people could disagree, but probably I would classify it as an 8. I don't think it's the most risky approach ever. So I wouldn't give it a 10. And certainly this will also vary from trader to trader. It depends on your own risk profile and risk appetite. And some might give it a 6, some might give it a 10, some might give it a 9, some might give it a 4, but I think somewhere around a 7 or 8. There are definitely more risky approaches. And that's why one of the reasons that Currency and Misaf also, Misaf Nikolic, we are looking at different types of trading so that traders can also choose their kind of overall portfolio and overall risk approach, so that they can make a nice portfolio and choose kind of the risk they want to take. So we will be offering even riskier approaches, and we'll also be offering less risky approaches, so that the trader can then pick and choose what type of overall portfolio they want with trading EAs and how much risk they want to put on what. So maybe some more risk averse trader would like to put more capital on less risky trades systems, excuse me, a little bit on Ultima and nothing on the most risky. Another trader might decide, okay, I'm going to go a little bit on the most risky, the most on Ultima EA $1.15, 5 minute per 5% risk, and a quarter on the least risky, right? Every trader can choose. At this moment, we only have Ultima EA 15-minute $1 chart, 5% risk, right? So either a trader likes that or it doesn't. And either they put a little bit of capital or they don't, or they put a lot of capital or little. It's up to them. But this is the only choice at this moment. Unless you rented it, then you can choose. Okay. But we do want to give from Elite Currency and Mislav perspective, we do want to give more options in the near future. Let's see. Yes, I will check the form soon. At the time of the webinar, we didn't have any questions as yet. Risk to reward ratio or reward to risk ratio, R2R in general, is basically indicating how much you earn when you have a profitable trade and how much you lose when you have a losing trade. And often neglected by traders. Traders often don't think that, or not often, but some traders don't think that is important. I personally think it's a useful statistic to understand your trading. I don't think it is important as a target. You could use it as a target, but I don't think it's necessary or desirable. But you can analyze your trading with the help of that matrix to understand your trading in general better. So with Ultima EA, it's about, depending on the account, it is about 1.1, 1.2. So the average win versus the average loss, right? You can see here the average win with this particular account. Sorry, this is backtesting. So let's go to a real account. Hang on. 492 euros versus minus 441. So the wins are bigger by about 50 euros. So it's about 1.1. 44 pips versus minus 36 pips. In that case, it's about 1.2, I think. Right? Whereas the win percentage is around 60%. All right. Hope that answers Joel's question there. Is the Telegram Ultima working? No, I don't think it's working at this moment. It created some problems. Unfortunately, the Telegram itself created some problems for trading, which of course is not good. Obviously, trading properly is the most important. And Telegram, unfortunately, was causing some bumps on the road. And yeah, we're working on that, but I'm not sure what the status is at the moment. Mislav is taking a short break there, so we'll probably have an update on that next week. Christine has a follow-up. Risk ratio is 3%. That's fine. That's a medium approach. And is using Pepperstone. 9 losses. So let's take a look at that. Let me open up my MT4. And if you, I mean, generally speaking, we should expect some minor differences between brokers. Sometimes 1 pip could be the difference between having a trade or not, missing a trade or not, hitting the target or not, moving to break even or not. So those small differences is certainly normal and nothing to be alarmed about, because every broker is going to have slightly different prices. And in some cases, a slight difference might make a difference in the trade setups, how it's traded. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with that. Now, of course, that said, if you join these webinars regularly and you continue to see differences on an ongoing basis, then we have to, take a look. You will have to take a look, and we can help you with that. Is whether maybe the broker is maybe not the best for this particular EA. Something to consider could be worth maybe changing brokers, or if you're a renter, maybe you would like to reduce the work of choosing a VPS and such, and you can join a profit share model instead, for instance, right? So these are things to consider how to solve that. Anyhow, let me switch. I see that I'm not sharing my screen actually. Hang on. We'll be soon sharing the screen. Hang on, folks. And yeah, I got a confirmation from Mukut Nikita saying that it's not working indeed at the moment. The Telegram channel. Roger had also 9 losses in a row using a different broker than Christine. Hang on, folks. Let me share my Facebook in the meantime. It's almost open, but all right. Let's zoom down and go all the way down to the last bit here, June. Let's take a look at the entire June. So this is when June started. 2 wins at the end of May, 2 wins at the beginning of June. And then indeed some type of losing streak with, in my case, 1 win to interrupt that streak. But as I said, there could be local differences. There could be differences between accounts. So if you miss that win, that is possible, as I mentioned before, and it can happen. So 2, 4, 6. I had 8 losses on this account. So yeah, that seems to be testing 1, 2, 3. Ah, great, wonderful. Sorry for that. We're back. The PC died on me, so had to get it back, and it's a bit slow. I'm planning to buy a bit faster laptop. This one is getting a bit slow at this moment. Too much info on it, I guess. All right. Let's see. We were talking about, yeah. So the difference between me and some others here, 1 win less. Sorry, yes. 1 win less and 1 loss more. That can add up. I would say that with 2 trades, I wouldn't necessarily see that as a major, massive difference as yet. But as I said, if it does add up, I mean, if it does occur more regularly, then yeah, I would either think about the profit share model or using a different broker. The EA is running correctly. I don't see any reason why it should not. The EA has rules, strict rules, and has also basically parameters that have to be met, and those don't change. So we can ask Mislav next week when he's back and joining this webinar. But there's, the EA is running as it is, and there's never going to be a difference in that. There's some flexibility with the trade management, but it's again based on rules. So it's basically based on price swings. So based on how the price swings move, the trade management will be done. But even that is rules based. So there's flexibility in the sense that it depends on the future price swings, but there's rules for those price swings. Let me show the profit share model performance so you can get a little bit better grasp on that indeed. And that's here. That's up 39%. We started mid-April, as you can see, April the 15th to be very precise. 2.5 months of trading, plus 39% at the moment. So yeah, if you want to have a copy, let's say, or a performance that is the same as what we're looking at, then profit share model is easier from that perspective because of the simplicity just to connect and see the same trades as the main account. This particular account with the profit share model is also slightly negative territory though, minus 1.78%. But let's almost let's say minus 2% to keep it simple. But of course, 2% is very small. It's plus minus break even. May was 31 and April plus 8. So pretty good. I mean, obviously not sky high as plus 200, but decent performance on the profit share so far. Ilya, regarding the open buy and sell in the same day, yes, it is. I mean, you can have the option of turning off the hedging when you rent it. If you've rented it, there is the opportunity to go with the non-hedging style. And we can ask Mislav which one he thinks is best. He's better equipped to answer that question. Christine, they're really not redundant orders because if you take away those orders, it would really impact the long-term performance negatively, because in the long run you would be removing many wins, more wins than losses in such cases. So that is why we don't manually intervene with the system, because of the fact that we're looking at the long-term performance, right? I mean, there would be, let's say we see a trade is open and has some floating profit, and we start closing all of those, all right? But then with the next trades, that might work well for a while, but then we start to miss the bigger wins because we close other wins also at a lower point. So manually intervening is a slippery slope. It might work well in some specific cases, but if you start to do it regularly, you're kind of impacting. There's a potential to impact the long run performance expectation negatively. I mean, there's a chance you might improve it too, of course, but it's more difficult. It's easier to get kind of confused and let trading psychology make bad decisions. And it's best to let the long-term performance expectation run its course and just let it run, automate it. It's much easier, and just see it as a 6 to 12 month thing and just let it go, right? That is the better approach, and choose a risk capital that you feel comfortable with, that you can afford yourself that view and that approach. That's much better probably than going with a higher risk capital and manually intervening. And once you start to see that your own manual interventions are doing worse than the EA, that will create annoyance, fear, and it could become kind of a downward spiral. So we personally prefer just to let the EA run. That's what we're doing with our own trading as well. The system is in our view, at this moment, considering the process that has been put and the energy and the time invested is probably at its best. I don't expect any changes to the system. What you could expect from us is different EAs at different risk levels with different drawdowns and different approaches. So this is one approach, right? One style, one risk approach. And not everyone is going to appreciate that. Some will. And they will, trade it with some capital they feel comfortable with. But what we will do is offer different kind of approaches with different types of EAs. But I don't expect any changes with this particular Ultima EA system. All right. I will check the form, but last time I looked, I didn't see any responses there or questions there, but feel free to use that during the week. We like to get questions there, and we'll answer them next week, Tuesday. It is much more beneficial for everyone. We'll get you the answer that you are looking for, but also the whole group can learn from that and can share in that knowledge rather than we just working on a one-to-one basis. And I think this group knowledge is very valuable. So we're looking forward to the next webinar next week, Tuesday. Hopefully, a smooth webinar without any technical issues. Sorry for the problem today that I think 5-7 minutes I was out there. Thanks for your patience on that as well. There are 8 questions. Those were answered last week. In fact, those are old questions, old responses that have been already handled 2 weeks ago. And so that will wrap it up, I guess. The main message, 2 new questions. I don't see them. Let's see. Maybe the only one that I think those are all old ones. The only one is maybe the institutional trading level. Well, for higher capitals and institutional trading, the balance is best. I think a portfolio approach is desired. If you're trading with 1,000 euro, 2,000 euro, 5,000. I think that in most cases, traders are looking to aggressively grow those accounts to something more substantial. That's why that's the goal of Ultima EA for these accounts. And of course, you need to feel comfortable with such a risk approach. Otherwise, don't do it. But if you do, that is the goal of Ultima EA, to have a higher risk approach that builds the account, of course, with the potential for drawdown, obviously, and the risk of that, and perhaps even losing the account. But on the flip side, a very substantial chance to make substantial profits and build the account. Now, of course, with higher level of capitals, nothing wrong with trading 5% risk per setup too, but certainly would make some type of portfolio and do a diversification. So some on the highest risk approach, some on the medium risk approach. For instance, your dollar 3% risk, some on lower percent, some percentage on the lower risk approach, like for instance, pound dollar 1 hour chart, euro dollar 2% risk. Those would suffice in trading kind of a lower risk approach. Now, even traders with less capital can do the same, of course. That's why we are looking into offering more types of approaches with different risk profiles as well in the near future. All right, 2020 and 2021. But certainly for institution trading, that is even more important. For retail traders, I think that could be important too. Depends on your risk profile. But at this moment, we're offering this euro dollar 15-minute chart 5% risk because in most cases, retail traders want to aggressively grow their smaller account, typically on average. All right, that's it. I don't see any other new questions there in the form. But do please use it, of course, for next week, so we can review it and everyone and we can prepare and then share those answers in these live webinars. And one new one in the chat: why is our strategy related to VPS? Well, if you're renting the Ultima EA, then you can either trade it on your own PC, leaving the PC running 24 hours basically, or you can use a VPS and you will trade the EA on the MT4 on the VPS, which means that you don't have to keep your computer running. So it's a little bit more solid, more secure kind of method with using a VPS. All right, so with VPS, basically, if your computer malfunctions in any way or it stops working, you might miss the trade. You might miss trade management. It might not. This is something that could be a factor, basically, something to review in any case. All right. So if you see big discrepancies in the long run, month by month, between what we're trading and what you're trading, then there are some things to think about. VPS, a different broker, or trying our profit share model. Or if you're already in the profit share model, of course, then you should be seeing plus minus the same performance as we have here on my FX book, depending on when you started. Of course, if you just started, you might have missed some trades. But otherwise, it should be plus minus the same. Yes, we will indeed, Joe. Very soon, we are planning that. I think somewhere mid-July, probably. It's around the corner. We'll have some videos, some webinars. We'll have some articles explaining that. So that's all coming up indeed. At the moment, indeed, Ultima EA is available through profit share only. Correct. I mean, if you cannot open an account with our partner broker Key2 Markets, then reach out and we'll find a way, a rental probably, for you to still join. The Ultima profit share model will be closed from a week from now, and we'll reopen maybe later in September. So if you're still looking to join, this is a good moment. This is a good week to do that. All right. Any current traders, though, can always add capital when they want. That is not restricted in any way. So feel free to add if you like, if you're already a current member. It's about new members joining the profit share model. And it will be open for another week. No, that one would not be profit share, Joel. It will be a one-time payment, and it would not be a through profit share in this particular EA. Zeus. All right, folks. Well, we have had a great session, 1 hour almost. Thank you for all your questions and for your time. And we're going to be back next week, Tuesday again. We're going to take a look at Ultimate EA, and we'll have more webinars coming up, more videos with different EAs, as I mentioned already before. More EAs coming up with Elite Currency and also Mislav. Mislav, Nikolic, and I, Chris Forsick, want to thank you for being here and looking forward already to seeing you next week. Wish you all great trading in the meantime. Cheers. Bye-bye.